So John Barilaro on Sky News last night says the situation is worsening in Sydney and he says it's now out of control. Are you still against the lockdown in Sydney?
Yes, I am, Peter. I don't think the costs justify this lockdown. You heard on your program before about that gym owner. People are losing their businesses, their livelihoods. People are obviously affected mentally from lockdowns. Kids are out of school. A couple of years ago, 2 Australians a day died from the flu. There were no breathless press conferences or rolling coverage on 24 News of that. The reality now is over 70% of older Australians have had a vaccine shot. Our health workers are vaccinated. I just don't see right now that there is a justification for such massive costs being imposed on people personally for what is a disease that we've had for more than 18 months now. We know much more about it, and we can respond in a much more targeted and less costly way, in my view.
Well, I mean, it's now spreading into Victoria, so is your answer to that just to let it rip?
Well, I think that's that's a very pejorative statement to put with it. I think what we've got to do is live with this. We've got to learn to live with this, because we just can't keep locking down every time there's an outbreak. This is going to happen at some point.
We don't have enough vaccines, though.
Coronavirus will be with us. Well, as I said, we do have enough vaccines for the older Australians. And that's what we locked down for last year. And I fully supported all the other lockdowns, just so we're clear. I never opposed the lockdowns last year. I think they were sensible at a time when we didn't know much about the virus, and, of course, to protect vulnerable Australians who had no access to a vaccine. Now, of course, those older Australians in vulnerable groups have access to the vaccine. There are some, of course, that haven't taken that up, but that's their choice. I don't know. What is the justification now for this? Because we were told last year to lock down to flatten the curve. We were then told to lock down to help vulnerable people. Okay, all good. I support that. What is the justification now? Because we can't remove all risk from our life, and there is no choice here that does not impose massive costs and risks on people. The lockdown itself is enormously costly for people's livelihoods, and it does affect people's health.
But this Delta strain now, it's affecting young people as it's never done before. Of the cases, 25 under the age of 55, 14 under the age of 35, 18 in ICU, 4 needing oxygen. I mean, if you do let it go, that is inevitably going to lead to more people in hospitals, and potentially much worse than that.
Well, as I said, Peter, there's no costless option here. There's no option that doesn't impact people's health. There's no option that doesn't lead to greater hospitalisations, because lockdowns do that too. Obviously, the costs of lockdown sometimes are a lot less visible. They're a lot less measurable. They don't generate the same headlines, but we seem to be running our country now based on media hype and headlines, not on the facts on the ground. And the facts on the ground are that people get crushed by lockdowns. Their livelihoods get destroyed. Their mental health is massively impacted. And before we had this pandemic, before we had the coronavirus pandemic, all of the health advice from epidemiologists, from virologists, was that lockdowns should only be used extremely rarely because of all of these costs and because of the fact that they don't always stop the spread of a virus. Yet we seem to have thrown that all out the window on the back, as I say, of a lot of media hype over this disease, which wasn't there when we've had other diseases spread through our community.